No one heard the voice except Noah. There was no thunder when it came, no fire, no spectacle, just a command so precise, so deliberate, that it shattered the quiet rhythm of a world that had never known rain. Build yourself an ark. Not a suggestion, not a warning wrapped in mystery, a directive, clear, final. The dimensions were exact: 137 meters long, 23 meters wide, 3 full stories high, every measurement fixed, not symbolic, not poetic engineering, precise, the kind of specificity that leaves no room for interpretation. This was not a vision meant to inspire, it was an order meant to be executed. And when the voice faded, Noah was left standing in a world that looked exactly the same as it had moments before: trees swaying gently, soil breathing moisture upward, people moving through their lives without the slightest awareness that their time had already been measured. Nothing had changed, except everything. The first challenge did not involve wood or tools, it involved reality itself. A structure of this magnitude could not rise on instinct alone. 137 meters of length demanded landreal land, firm ground, stable soil, a place that could hold the weight of thousands of tons of timber long before water ever touched it. So Noah walked. He walked the land day after day, not with maps or instruments, but with eyes trained by years of labor and hands that knew the language of earth. He pressed soil between his fingers. He watched how water lingered after the morning mist lifted. He studied slopes, distances, wind patterns. He measured space not with numbers, but with judgment. The pre-flood world was different. The Bible speaks of a mist that rose from the earth and watered the whole surface. There were no storms, no rainfall. Moisture came from below, not above. The ground was alive with water, constantly damp, constantly shifting. A builder would know what that meant. Wet soil betrays weight. A foundation laid carelessly would sink, tilt, fracture. And Noah understood this before the first stone was ever moved. The ark would fail before it was born if the land beneath it was not prepared to endure decades of pressure. When he finally chose the place, it did not look impressive. There were no mountains, no dramatic backdrop, just open land, wide, stubborn, unremarkable to anyone else. But it was right. The work began not with construction, but with destruction. Large stones were dragged away by hand. Roots thicker than arms were cut and torn from the ground. Uneven earth was leveled meter by meter. Soil was compacted again and again, pressed down until it resisted the weight of the foot. Instead of yielding to it, it was slow, dirty, invisible labor. And all the while, the mist rose. Moisture crept back into the soil, no matter how much effort was spent drying it. Tools sank, footprints filled with water. The earth itself fought the project, so Noah adapted. Shallow channels were dug around the perimeter, simple trenches carved with patience, guiding water away from the worksite. Not drains as we know them, but enough to let the ground breathe, enough to prevent saturation, enough to keep mud from swallowing months of effort. There was no applause. People passed by. Some slowed their steps, others stopped. A man clearing an enormous stretch of land for no visible reason. No fields, no house, no city, just space. Empty space carved with obsession. Whispers followed him. What is he preparing for? He's lost his mind. There has never been a flood. Noah did not answer. He had learned something long before the ark existed, that obedience does not require validation. It requires endurance. When the land was finally ready, when the soil resisted pressure and held firm beneath the feet, the next challenge revealed itself in full scale. Wood. Make the ark of cypress, not small trees, not saplings. Cypress was chosen for its strength, its resistance to decay, its endurance against moisture. These were towering giants, thick-trunked, heavy, unyielding. Felling one with primitive tools was an act of commitment. Every strike of the blade bit slowly into the wood. Hours passed, days blurred, muscles burned, and when the tree finally groaned and fell, the sound echoed through the forest like a declaration. And then came the silence, because cutting was only the beginning. A fallen trunk did not move itself without wheels, without machines, without animals trained for hauling massive weight. The solution came from knowledge older than writing itself. Rollers, smaller logs placed beneath the great trunk, transforming friction into movement. Rope tightened, levers wedged beneath bark. Inch by inch, the wood moved, slowly, dangerously. Every shift carried risk. A slip could crush a leg, a snapped rope could kill, but the logs moved. meter by meter, day by day. And as they did, something changed. The land that had once been empty began to fill. Massive timbers stacked in growing numbers, piles that could no longer be ignored. Evidence that this was not madness, it was construction. The watchers grew louder, men transporting enormous trees toward a site where no ship had any reason to exist. No river, no sea, no harbor. Mockery turned to confusion. Confusion turned to unease, because something that should not have been happening clearly was. Noah worked on, not motivated by what he saw around him, but by what he had heard when no one else was listening. And when enough wood lay ready, when the land was scarred by effort and the forest echoed with absence, the most critical phase began. The ark would no longer be an idea. It would begin to take shape, and once that happened, there would be no turning back. Asterisk the moment the first beam was laid, the ark stopped being a rumor. Until then, people could dismiss the cleared land as obsession, the stacked wood as foolish excess. But when the foundation line was marked straight, deliberate, impossibly long, something shifted. This was no shelter. This was no house. This was something no one had ever seen before. The heart of the ark began with what ancient builders understood instinctively: the backbone. A structure of this scale could not rely on scattered strength. It needed a central spine, one continuous line, capable of carrying the weight of everything that would come after: decks, cargo, animals, water, pressure, movement, stress. But there was an impossible problem. No tree on earth was long enough. 100 meters could not be carved from a single trunk, no matter how ancient or tall the forest. The solution required something more demanding than strength. It required precision. Massive beams were selected, each one carefully shaped, squared, and aligned. Their ends were carved into joints, male and female connections known to craftsmen long before history was written. These were not crude overlaps. They were exact fits, designed to lock together so tightly that once joined, they behaved as a single piece of wood. Hardwood pegs were driven through the joints, swelling slightly with moisture, locking the beams in place. Every connection was tested, adjusted, retested, because if the backbone failed, nothing else mattered. When the keel was finally complete, stretching across the prepared ground like a silent declaration, it dwarfed everything around it. Men stood beside it and looked small. Children ran along its length and grew tired before reaching the end. There was no laughter now, only staring. The ribs came next. These were not straight beams. They were curved, shaped to give the ark its form, its strength, its ability to resist pressure from all directions. Each rib had to rise from the keel at the correct angle, mirror its opposite perfectly, and meet the structure above with precision. Lifting them was a battle. Levers were wedged beneath the beams. Ropes thick as arms were looped and pulled. Voices strained, muscles trembled. Sweat darkened the soil that had taken months to prepare. Each rib rose slowly, inch by inch, guided into place, while others held it steady. Stones tied to cords served as plumb lines, swaying gently to confirm vertical alignment. Taut ropes, stretched from end to end, created visual guides, ensuring no deviation went unnoticed. If one rib leaned too far inward or outward, the entire structure would twist over time. Noah knew this. His sons knew it. Every correction mattered. When the first set of ribs stood upright, something unmistakable happened. The ark had a silhouette. From a distance, its shape was unmistakable, massive, unnatural against the flat land. It no longer looked like wood stacked on soil. It looked alive, like the bones of something enormous emerging from the earth, and people gathered. They did not need to be told what they were seeing. Instinct recognized scale, purpose, intent. This was not shelter from animals. This was not storage. This was preparation. As the skeleton grew, beams were added horizontally, binding the ribs together, distributing weight, increasing rigidity. Floor supports followed, marking the future divisions of 3 full levels. Each addition made the structure heavier and stronger. But wood alone was not enough. Strength without protection would fail. So the ceiling began thick and heavy was harvested from the earth, heated until it flowed, stirred until it thickened, applied while hot, layer by layer, inside and out. Every seam, every joint, every crack. Hands burned, the smell hung in the air. Time slowed to the rhythm of application and drying. One flaw could invite water. One missed seam could doom everything, so they worked relentlessly. Inside the ark, the same process continued. Wood absorbs moisture. That truth could not be ignored. Internal sealing was just as critical as the exterior. The Ark was becoming something more than a structure. It was becoming a barrier between life and destruction. Days turned to weeks. Weeks into months. The skeleton disappeared beneath planks. The planks vanish beneath pitch, and when the final layer hardened, the Ark stood silent and sealed, no longer raw wood, but a vessel. Then came the compartments. The Bible uses a word that does not mean rooms, but divisions, cells, nests, ordered spaces. The Ark was never meant to be chaos. It was meant to be controlled, balanced, intentional. Walls rose inside the massive hull, dividing space by function and by weight. Lower levels reinforced to carry the heaviest loads. Upper levels designed lighter, with airflow and access. Nothing was random. Balance was survival. Ventilation openings were carved near the top, protected by overhangs to prevent water intrusion. Air channels formed naturally between compartments, allowing gases to escape and fresh air to circulate. Food storage followed. Entire sections dedicated to grain, dried vegetation, preserved roots, containers sealed against moisture, pathways left clear for movement, systems designed not for comfort, but endurance. The Ark was becoming a city, and every city has one point of vulnerability. The door, a single massive opening carved into the side of the structure, large enough for the largest animals to pass through, reinforced with beams thick enough to resist both pressure and impact, without metal hinges. The solution was ancient and brilliant: a vertical pivot, a reinforced wooden shaft that allowed the door to swing while maintaining strength. Bracing surrounded it, diagonal supports absorbed stress. It was the last piece, and it was watched more than any other, because now no one doubted what this was. They just doubted why Noah walked the interior alone one final time. He listened to the wood settle, felt the structure respond beneath his steps, touched joints, pressed sealed seams. Everything spoke. The Ark was ready. What no one understood, what no one could understand, was that the most extraordinary part had not yet begun, because Noah had built. Now God would act. The animals came without being summoned. No ropes, no cages, no force. They came at first. It was subtle, a movement at the edge of the forest, a rustle that lingered longer than it should have. Noah noticed it before anyone else, not because he was looking for spectacle, but because obedience sharpens awareness. A pair of animals emerged together, not hurried, not afraid. Then another and another. Word spread faster than reason ever could. People came running. What they saw defied everything they understood about nature. Predators walking beside prey without tension. Creatures that should have fled from human presence approaching calmly. Birds circling, then descending, landing near the massive door as if they had always known where it was. It was not chaos, it was order. Each pair moved with purpose, entering the Ark without resistance, without confusion. Large animals first, heavy steps echoing through the lower level as they were guided into reinforced compartments. Medium creatures followed, then the smallest, filling the upper spaces where light and air were strongest. The Ark absorbed them. Noah's sons moved quietly, opening partitions, closing others, guiding each species to its place. There were no shouted commands, no panic, only awe, because this was no longer human coordination. This was orchestration. Outside, disbelief curdled into fear. The same mouths that had laughed now fell silent. The same eyes that had mocked now followed every movement with growing dread, because something had gone terribly wrong with their certainty. The Ark was full. And then, something happened that no hammer could accomplish. The door closed, not by human hands. The Bible says it simply, without embellishment, without explanation. The Lord shut him in. No creaking struggle, no frantic pushing, no last-second adjustments. The massive door sealed itself with finality that could not be reversed. The sound echoed inside the Ark. Silence followed, a deep, unnatural stillness. Outside, the world remained unchanged. For a moment, Noah stood within the sealed vessel and listened. He felt the weight of separation settle over him. The barrier between inside and outside was no longer wood alone, it was destiny. Then the earth moved. It did not begin with rain, it began from below. A violent shudder rippled through the ground. The Ark groaned, not from water, but from the earth itself tearing open. The Bible describes it as the bursting forth of the fountains of the great deep. Pressure released after centuries held tight. cracks splitting land, water surging upward with unstoppable force. The ark trembled. Then came the sound no human had ever heard before. Rain, not mist, not dew, rain. It struck the sealed wood in heavy, relentless sheets. At first, it was confusion. People ran from the unfamiliar sensation, shielding their faces, laughing nervously, shouting questions into the sky. But the drops did not stop. They grew heavier, louder. The sky darkened as if the heavens themselves were opening in judgment. Panic spread. Water pooled where it never had before. Streams formed in minutes. The ground that had always absorbed moisture now rejected it. People ran toward higher ground, toward the ark, toward anything that seemed solid. But the door did not open. The ark did not respond. Inside, the floor shifted slightly. Then again, and then weightlessness. The vessel lifted. For the first time since it was built, the ark left the earth. The creaking of wood intensified as the massive structure adjusted to movement it had never known. Water slapped against its sides. The rocking began slow at first, then stronger. Outside, screams were swallowed by the roar of rain and rising water. The world was being erased. Inside the ark, life continued. Animals were fed. Compartments were cleaned. Lamps flickered in the dim interior. Noah and his family worked, prayed, waited. Time lost its meaning. Days blurred into routine measured by survival. That the rain ceased after 40 days. But the flood did not. For 150 days, the waters prevailed. Mountains vanished beneath the surface. Forests broke apart. Entire civilizations dissolved into silence. The ark floated alone on a planet without landmarks. No steering, no control, only preservation, only preservation. And then, quietly, something changed. The motion softened. The endless drifting slowed. One day, without warning, the ark stopped. It rested. Noah waited. Weeks passed. Then he opened the upper opening, letting light and fresh air rush inside for the first time in months. He released a raven. It did not return. Then a dove. It came back, finding no place to rest. 7 days passed. The dove was released again. This time, it returned with an olive leaf in its beak. Life had begun again. 7 days later, the dove was released once more. It did not come back. The silence that followed was different. Now, it was hopeful. But Noah did not move. He waited. Because obedience does not rush the ending, it listens for the next command. The command came the same way. The first one had no thunder, no spectacle, just clarity. Come out of the ark. After more than a year, sealed inside wood and waiting, Noah did not rush. He had learned that survival came from listening, not assuming. When the door finally opened, the same door no human had closed, light poured in with a force that felt almost violent. Fresh air rushed through corridors that had held breath and heat for months. Dust motes danced where darkness had lived. The animals stirred, sensing what Noah sensed before his feet ever touched the ground. The world had changed. One by one, the creatures exited, not chaotically, not in fear. They moved as if guided by an instinct older than memory. Heavy animals descended first, testing the earth with cautious steps. Then the rest followed, birds launching into open sky, small creatures disappearing into newly forming landscapes. Noah and his family stepped out last. The ground beneath them was firm but unfamiliar. The smell of wet earth filled the air, rich, clean, untouched by human industry. There were no cities, no roads, no voices. The old world was gone completely, erased without residue. Silence stretched in every direction, and in that silence, Noah did the first thing humanity had done right in a very long time. He built an altar, not a house, not a monument to survival. An altar. Stones were stacked by hand, simple and unadorned, a place of acknowledgement, a declaration that survival had not come from strength, intelligence, or endurance but from mercy. When Noah offered sacrifice, the Bible says God was pleased. And then came a promise that reshaped history. Never again would water be used to erase all life. Never again would judgment come without restraint. And as if the words themselves were not enough, the sky responded. Clouds parted, light broke through, and something that had never existed before appeared. Color stretched across the heavens in an arc of impossible beauty. A rainbow. Not decoration. A covenant, a visible reminder that even when humanity fails completely, God chooses preservation over annihilation. That judgment has limits. That mercy always speaks last. From that moment, the rules of the world changed, seasons began, rain had boundaries, life multiplied again. From Noah's sons came nations, from obedience came continuity, from a wooden vessel came the future of every living human being who would ever breathe. The Ark, once mocked as madness, had become the womb of civilization. And then its purpose was finished. It was never meant to sail again, never meant to be reused. It existed for one moment in history, and that was enough. Because the Ark was never just a ship, it was faith shaped into form, obedience turned into architecture, salvation built plank by plank, and the lesson it leaves behind is as uncomfortable as it is eternal. When God speaks, obedience always looks foolish until it becomes the only thing left standing. If you've made it this far, you already understand something most never will. The story of Noah isn't about water, it's about trust. It's about listening when no one else hears.